So you remember how the week before and the week before that we were located primarily in Hebrews 9, the first 10 chapters. Well, guess where we are today? Hebrews 9, the first 10 verses. That's what I meant to say before, not chapters, because that's weird, right? Right. Anyway, so just a couple of things. This is going to be more of an informational thing. This is going to be great for discussion, and I'm not going to take a long time. So pay close attention. I am going to read, however, from the Bible, and I will do it so that you understand again. I'm only going to be reading the first 2 verses. All right. That first covenant between God and Israel had regulations for worship and a place of worship here on earth. There were 2 rooms in the tabernacle. In the first room, there were a lampstand, a table, and sacred loaves of bread on that table. This room was called the holy place. All right. Now, one of the reasons that I want to take an opportunity to do this, we've talked about the temple, we've talked about the tabernacle many times, but we don't have a really good frame of reference for it. We've never been, and my SketchUp model is not yet done. It's not ready for public viewing. So I'm going to take the opportunity to discuss a few things. The first thing that we're going to discuss is the lampstand. Now, the lampstand is built very specifically. If you turn to Exodus, Exodus 25, starting in verse 31. I'd like you to notice I know my Bible well enough that I did not have a marker there, but I was able to turn right to it. You all should be in the same boat as that. Now, Exodus chapter 25, verse 31. Make a lampstand of pure hammered gold. Make the entire lampstand and its decorations of one piece, the base, center stem, lamp cups, buds, and petals. Make it with 6 branches going out from the center stem, 3 on each side. Each of the 6 branches will have 3 lamp cups shaped like almond blossoms, complete with buds and petals. Craft the center stem of the lampstand with 4 lamp cups shaped like almond blossoms, complete with buds and petals. There will also be an almond bud beneath each pair of branches, there where the 6 branches extend from the center stem. The almond buds and branches must all be of one piece with the center stem, and they must be hammered from pure gold. Then make 7 lamps for the lampstand and set them so that they reflect their light forward. The lamp snuffers and trays will also be made of pure gold. You will need 75 pounds of pure gold for the lampstand and accessories. Be sure that you make everything according to this pattern that I have shown you on the mountain. So, there's a couple of things that are specifically mentioned several times. There is almonds. Now, one of the things that you may not know about almonds, almonds are one of the earliest trees to bloom. They bloom, in fact, before they have leaves. They bloom in late January or early February. Almonds are associated with the light. They're the first to awaken. So there is a specific reason that the lampstand is made with all of buds and blossoms. First of all, almonds are yummy. No, they're great, really. And cyanide kind of smells like almonds. No. Almond blossoms, the buds, they are representation of light and going to the light, of awakening in the light. You need to understand that this lampstand that they're directed to build is the light for the holy place. There are no windows in this place that's being described. The walls are polished and covered in gold. And the light from this single lampstand, which is, by the way, from 100% pure pressed virgin olive oil. The light from these lamps are to illuminate the entirety of this room. Now, there is only, well, technically, there are three things that are in this room. Obviously, there's the curtain that separates it from the Holy of Holies. But in this room, there is a table. Now, this table is not, I know, it looks like donuts, right? That's shewbread. We'll get to that in a second. This table, although I have a hankering to go to Krispy Kreme right now. Anyway, I digress. This table is not made out of 100% gold. It's actually overlaid in gold. In fact, the lampstand was one of only two things that were made out of pure gold to represent purity, to represent God. Does anybody know what the other thing in the temple that was made out of pure gold is? Particularly the mercy seat, the Ark of the Covenant. So the lid, basically, for the Ark of the Covenant. Because the box itself was acacia wood and then covered in gold. So the table itself has 4 rings, and these poles were inserted. Why were there rings and poles inserted? Because they got to carry it with them. So when it became a permanent building, this same design was put into place because this is the design that God gave them. This is what was given to Moses on the mountain. Now, there are 12 pieces of shewbread. The shewbread was specifically made, and there are 12 pieces for a reason. Anybody have a guess as to why this? 12 tribes. That's interesting. So the lamp is on the south side of the temple. Across from that, on the north side of the temple, is the table with the shewbread and the ceremonial wine. Now, each Sabbath, this bread was baked fresh, was replaced on there, and it was covered with frankincense. Frankincense is basically the resin, the dried resin of the ebu tree, and it has a very fragrant scent. It also has some slight preservative properties. So every Sabbath, the bread was replaced, the frankincense was dusted off, and the only people that were allowed to eat from this, with rare exception, were the priests. And they had to eat it in the holy place, and they could not sit down. Because, I mentioned there was only a couple things in the room. There were no chairs. So, they could not experience great comfort. They couldn't sit down. They had to eat of this bread standing up, replace the bread. Now, this is one of the things about the bread. It would last all week. Right? So fresh bread put out with the frankincense, the light shining upon the bread, shining upon the table. And this bread would last all week. So there is some perseverance going on there, right? Some type of preservation was occurring with this. So what does this all mean? What does this have to do with anything? Almonds, yummy, yes. Almond blossoms are the first thing to basically open up to awaken to the light. The light is proffered by the lampstand that is always burning. It is constantly refilled all the time, only with fresh pressed olive oil. The priest would come in and trim the wicks and the ashes from the wicks and refill the oil on a regular basis. The light shines down constantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on to the face of the table which houses the bread. The bread is a representation of what? The 12 tribes, but even further than that, it's a representation of the body. It's a representation of life. So God is shining down His light upon specifically the 12 tribes, but to the body, to the life. He is shining down His light upon you. So, that's a little bit of what's going on in the temple, right? You've got a lamp. It's got 7 3 branches coming out each side in the center stem, always lit. They look like almond blossoms with cups, lamps that are always filled, shining from the south onto the table on the north with the bread that is preserved by God, always bathed in light. The lamp of a single lampstand with 7 lights is bright enough to lighten the entire tabernacle. The only thing that is covered from this light is the veil that separates the Holy of Holies. So what does that all mean? We have a different perspective as, number one, we've discussed before, we're not Jewish, but we also have the truth of Christ in our lives. So we have the opportunity, since we have that history behind us, to go back and look and say, okay, we know that this is a shadow of what is in heaven. We know that this place of worship here is a mere picture or physical copy of what's in heaven. We know that all of the rituals that take place here, all of the sacrifice, all of the blood, is purely a physical representation of what needs to happen to us spiritually. It takes care of the physical. Knowing this, knowing that Christ came and fulfilled the law in body and soul and mind and spirit, what can we take from that? What can we take from the light from the lamp with 7 branches, well, 6 branches and 1 single stem, shining down on the bread 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never going out? The bread staying fresh for an entire week, able to be eaten by the holy priests after 7 days. How does that apply to our current lives? How does that apply to what has been done for us? These are great questions, and I think that there'll be great discussions. That is why I said you had more time before, because this is really short now. So now take the opportunity to go ahead and get into your cell groups again. We will take time to discuss these things.